Hello, welcome to another North London Ulysses. I'm Russell Raphael, and hope we've got a really nice session ahead of us. We're in Oxen of the Sun, and last time I read from page 540 in the Penguin edition of James Joyce's Ulysses to the end of this marvellous chapter. And my job today is to comment on it and explain it. And you'll forgive me if I go fairly speedily from page 540 to page 555. No, 55. Yes, the bottom of 555, all off for a buster, because I really want to focus on those last few pages, 5 or 6 pages, and I'm almost going to, it's a holy mess. Language has come its full circle. We're right up to modern day, and I think Joyce intends that we are drunk at this point, and those last few pages are a mess. It's a bunch of drunken people talking in a whole host of different languages in the pub, and I really want to focus on that, and I'm going to try and translate it almost word for word. So it's therefore suitable that you catch me at the end on a Sunday evening after I've spent a really nice afternoon with friends, imbibing way too much drink, but that perhaps is the way one should be in this for this session. So let me carry on. Page 540. I'm going to start with what is the age of the soul of man. So I'm going to go at a faster pace from 540 to page 555. What is the age of the soul of man? What a line. It's feminized immediately, as she hath the virtue of the chameleon to change her hue at every new approach. Gay with the merry, mournful with the downcast, so too her age can change with her mood. And we find ourselves immediately with Bloom, but not as 38-year-old Leopold Bloom sat there in the hospital, but in the first instance, young Leopold, in a retrospective arrangement, a phrase that we have got used to in this book, that we associate with metempsychosis. A mirror within a mirror, hey presto, a technique drawn on brilliantly by Flann O'Brien. I don't know which book it was. I don't know if it was The Third Policeman or At Swim Two Birds, but there was an episode where the mirror is so placed where someone looks at it and then sees themselves in the mirror behind and gets younger and younger, because logically that would happen. You can almost reverse time if you could wrap your brain around that. And I wonder whether Flann O'Brien, obviously a great lover of Joyce, read this, a mirror within a mirror, and got the inspiration for that. Anyway, here Bloom imagines himself as a youngster. He's still at school, walking from Clanbrassil Street, the street, the main street near where he grew up. I don't think they lived on Clanbrassil Street, maybe St. Kevin's Parade, which was just off Clanbrassil Street. That whole area was known as Little Jerusalem, where what Jews there were in Dublin tended to live around there. But then our narrator isn't so sure. Maybe it's that figure, but a year later. And when he's got his first job, working for the family business as a travelling salesman, going from door to door with his order book, a scented handkerchief, and then this lovely line, a quiver full of compliant smiles for this or that half-won housewife. And Yeah, it's nice. It's sentimental. Apparently, it's in the style of Charles Lamb, and we're inside of Bloom's head. He sat around the table in the hospital, but thinking these thoughts. There's his father. He's bringing home his whatever he's earned to his father, but then the mirror is breathed on again, and hey presto, we're somewhere else. And Bloom is surrounded by young people. Are these his children? The narrator doesn't know, and Bloom doesn't know. Who can say the wise father knows his own child? We're reminded of Telemachus when the Zeus's messenger arrives at the island of Ithaca, approaches Telemachus and says, "Are you Telemachus? You look like your father. I'm wondering if you are." It's in the Odyssey. And Telemachus replies, "I'm told I am. I'm told I'm Odysseus' father, but I've not seen him for 20 years. I'm told I look like him, but who knows? Who can ever know who one's father is?" So it's almost the reverse of that. And then we have a little vision of the night Bloom loses his virginity, so we think, with Bridie Kelly. The implication is that she's perhaps a young prostitute, the willer with the willed, and in that instant, light shall flood the world. We think of Genesis. But did light flood the world? No, nay, fair reader. The poor girl runs off. She is the bride of darkness, a daughter of night, a hint of the Black Mass from the beginning of the book. No, Leopold, that youthful illusion of thy strength was taken from thee, and in vain. That sperm was spilt, but she is not pregnant. Is there a hint there that Stephen may have been Bloom's son as he looks upon him paternally? But no, no son of thy loins is for thee. There is none now to be for Leopold what Leopold was for Rudolph, underlining Bloom's great sorrow that he has no male heir to carry the Bloom family name. He has no heir. His name will die with him. We then move to pretty amazing paragraph in the style of De Quincey from his writing, The English Mail Coach. The paragraph that begins, "Voices blend and fuse in clouded silence." And I do love this, and I think that this is an early example of the trend in which the book is going. Almost from the outset, we've had an inkling through the word metempsychosis and the very beginning of the book, where this mundane activity of having the daily shave was sort of an example of this great mythological religious ceremony of the Eucharist. Great mythological things can reduce to mundane activities in our daily lives. And so our daily lives might affect enormous epochal activity up in the heavens. And so we get a sense of that in this paragraph. And I think it's setting the scene for where we're going to go from here on in the book. Voices blend and fuse in clouded silence. That's in the room. Silence that is the infinite of space. And swiftly, silently, the soul, what is the age of the soul of man? The soul is wafted over regions of cycles of generations that have lived. And we are somewhere way off in the future or way off in the past. De Quincey, the master of the prose of dreams, were in his style. A region where grey twilight ever descends, never falls on wide sage green pasture fields, shedding her dusk, scattering a perennial dew of stars. We're not sure. Are we on Earth? Are we in the heavens? There are two characters, a she and her mother. But over the page we learn that it's a horse, a horse leading her filly foal, that they are twilight phantoms. So somehow they are horses, but in another sense, they're way off in an astral sphere of space. They fade, say it, sad phantoms, all is gone. Agendat is a wasteland, so somehow there is an allusion to the promised land. Where this is placed on earth is in ancient Israel, or modern Israel, we don't know. Modern Palestine as was then. But somehow it was a wonderful place, as Bloom initially saw it as a wonderful place, enormous melon fields north of Jaffa, and then a terrible place around the Dead Sea. And the same process is happening here. Agendat is a wasteland, a home of screech owls and the sunblind Upapa. Natayim, the golden, is no more. And on the highway of the clouds they come, muttering thunder of rebellion, the ghosts of beasts. In the style of Yeats' Countess Kathleen, we have this procession of extinct animals. Parallax, the shepherd. Parallax, this word that Bloom has struggled with all day, is somehow mixed up in his thoughts here as the shepherd guiding them. Is this somehow Bloom's conflicted thoughts about a new Jerusalem, or what is it? We don't know. It's terrifying and exciting all at once. But they are this parade of extinct animals: elk and yak, the bulls of Bashan and of Babylon, mammoth and mastodon. They come to the Dead Sea, Lacus Mortis. Ominous, revengeful, zodiacal host. Zodiac, the word takes us from earth back up into the heavens. They are passing upon the clouds, horned and capricorned. So Capricorned is this: are we in the heavens? Are we on earth? We're not sure. But we end with this back in the old Anglo-Saxon, moving, moaning multitude, murderers of the sun. Onward to the Dead Sea they tramp. This sort of horrific, nightmarish vision that Bloom is having. After he's had quite nice visions, he now has this. And it is Bloom that is having this vision. Unslaked, horrible gulpings they drink at the Dead Sea. The equine portent grows again. So now we think we are in the heavens. Is this Pegasus, as the star, the constellation of Pegasus, appears in the sky, and such a view is sort of confirmed because it looms vast over the house of Virgo. Virgo the Virgin. Is this an allusion back to Bridie Kelly? Is this about Millie? But somehow the house of Virgo is in his head. It is she everlasting, the bride ever virgin. Bridie Kelly, Martha comes into it, but no, here we are confirmed. Millicent the young, the dear, the radiant, serene. Somehow Millie is in the heavens, expanded to the heavens, queen among the Pleiades, in the penultimate Antelucan hour, as the night evolves through to the daytime, her shod in sandals of bright gold. Do you remember back in Calypso, Bloom he reminisces Millie running towards him down Eccles Street in golden sandals. And either there or he imagined on the Erin King, the pleasure craft that they went on a little pleasure cruise where it got all too choppy, and she had a blue scarf on her. Well, here she is, coiffed with a veil of, what do you call it, gossamer. It flows about her starborn flesh, and loose it streams, emerald, sapphire, mauve, and heliotrope. Again, the cold interstellar wind, winding, coiling, simply swirling back into his head of those seaside girls. So this vision of Millie mixing in with his thoughts, Millie is now dominating the sky and the heavens, and it takes us through. That was in the hour before the dawn, and here we are at the moment of the dawn, because it goes from heliotrope to red. It blazes alpha, ruby red, a triangled sign upon the forehead of Taurus. This is the last constellation that appears before the dawn, and it's a constellation, a triangular constellation, Taurus, dominated by the star of Taurus, or the constellation of Taurus. It appears ruby red because the sun is beginning to rise, and we will understand shortly what that means. So I beg your indulgence and your patience, because you might be thinking, what the hell was all that about? But we will work that out. We will learn in a page or two that Bloom is deep in thought, and that he doesn't understand, he isn't necessarily thinking what we've just read specifically, but on a level that is beyond his consciousness. That is what is going on. Let's leave that there for the moment. So I'm on page 543 at the top of the page, where it says Francis, Francis is Costello, reminding Stephen of years before when they were at school together, when Conmee was the teacher. So is this back at Clongowes? And the different students have different names: Glaucon, Alcibiades, Pisistratus. Maybe it's not Clongowes, maybe it's Belvedere College, but anyway, they were at school together, and Conmee was involved. And we're in the style of Landor, as our language is evolving. And Stephen says, Francis Costello, well, have you seen him lately? Stephen says, no, but why think of them? If I call them into life across the waters of Lethe, will not the poor ghosts troop to my call? Who supposes it? I, Stephonomanus, bullet befriending bard, am their lord and giver of their life. Stephen using his own sort of Greek nickname, saying, I can bring them back into life when I choose, because, reading between the lines here, I am a great writer. I am the author of all I create. So when I choose to recreate these people, they will run to my bidding. And he says this smiling at Vincent Lynch, who we take, I know it's his current friend, we take it perhaps that he was also at school with him. And Lynch kind of castigates Stephen a little. And he says, yes, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you are the creator of all these things. You're planning to write this amazing book. Ulysses, then it was an embryonic thing in Stephen's mind. And when you do more, when you've written more than just a cap full of light odes, then that will be great, and we wish you well and hope this for you. All desire to see you bring forth the work you meditate. Interesting, isn't it? So we've got Joyce, the author, writing about his younger self failing at that time to write the book he would like to create, to give life to characters he wanted to produce. It's quite sort of self-critical and in a way that I find pretty interesting. And Stephen didn't like this criticism. So Joyce is writing about his own younger self, finding it difficult at that age 22. And in many ways, this book is the story of Joyce's maturation from age 22, a young, arrogant man that had all this useless knowledge in his head. Useless because it wasn't backed up by life experience. Needs Bloom to give him some experience, to help him evolve into the family man that understands real life, reality. When you have a soulmate, when you produce children, this is real life, not to say exclusively, but for Joyce, this was particularly important. He felt it gave him the ammo, the kahunas to write the book that he went on to write. So Stephen is slighted by this. All could see how hard it was for him to be reminded of his promise and of his recent loss, i.e. his mother. And he would have left there and then. But the conversation changes and it moves on to the Gold Cup. Lenihan gives the story of what happened to in the Gold Cup. I think we can turn the page to 544. It's reasonably straightforward. How the jockey W. Lane is a great jockey, but oh my God, Scepter let us all down. She's not the filly she was. Vincent Lynch pipes up, talking about his girlfriend again. She was radiant in a frock of muslin. Anything else going on there? But she had naught for her teeth but the arm with which I held her. On that she nibbled mischievously when I was pressed too close, indicating we're at the age of the embryo where it develops teeth. So we're getting pretty close to the end result here. And identifies from an earlier episode, as we know Joyce, one of the tasks he set himself was to look back on incidents earlier in the day. Vincent Lynch, and now we know his girlfriend Kitty, have been canoodling in a field. They come out, they go through a hedge, and who's there to greet them but John Conmee, SJ, the very reverend, as we learnt in Wandering Rocks. And so it relates back to that episode. He says the word sin, but was it a wandering rock? And did he mean shin, the letter of the Hebrew alphabet that marks the point in the breviary that he had reached at that point? And blesses them, and they move on. Lenihan is about to reach for another drink, and Mulligan stays his hand because he's looking at Bloom. And he says, oh, hang on, look at how this man is staring over there, steeped in thought. Let's not disturb him. To disturb a person at that moment perhaps is as painful as being born. And what was it that Bloom was staring at? Well, we'll go on to consider that. So we might be interested in the fact that it's Mulligan that has stopped Lenihan from removing the bottle of beer that it turns out that Bloom was staring at. More of that shortly. But Mulligan has not been an over-sympathetic character up to now, but yet it's he that stays the hand of Lenihan and says, whoa, before you reach for that bottle of beer, let's be careful because there's a man over there staring intently at it. And there is a phrase somewhere in here that any object intensely regarded may be a gate of access to the incorruptible eon of the gods. And then he seeks out Stephen's counsel on that. Do you not think it's Stephen? But before I get to that, let's think about why has Joyce placed Mulligan in this role of not disturbing Bloom? Mulligan's not been a great friend to Bloom so far. But there is a reason, I think, that Joyce has called him Malachi. And we have to pronounce it slightly differently. And we go Malachi. Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament. Malachi was the last prophet of the Old Testament. And his name meant messenger of the gods. And it was Malachi that prophesied that Elijah will return. And when Elijah returns, that will be the harbinger of the Saviour, of the Messiah, of Jesus Christ in New Testament terms. So Mulligan has a role to play here. And it's so I see that as Malachi in protecting Bloom from being disturbed. Right. He says, do you not think it's Stephen? And he goes to Stephen, who he knows is into his theosophy. And Stephen, yes, agrees. And Stephen plays up to it and says, yes, the Lords of the Moon Theosophers told me an orange fiery shaped shipload from planet Alpha, blah, blah, blah. Remember the planet Alpha, incarnated by the ruby coloured egos from the second constellation. And then our next paragraph brings us back down to earth in many ways. First of all, it's in the style of, I don't know if it's attributed to anyone, but the essayist Atherton considers it that it's a forerunner to the Eumaeus chapter, where Joyce writes in this very overbearing, boring style of words tripping over each other, repetition, almost implying that Bloom is getting very tired at this point. And we learn what is it that Bloom has been staring at. What is this? And we know it's something to do with the beer bottle. It turns out it's a bottle of Bass, on which there is a red triangle. So we now can make sense of, if we step back or two, the myriad metamorphosis of symbol it blazes, Alpha, a ruby and triangled sign upon the forehead of Taurus. Not only was it the constellation that appears fiery red just before the dawn, but on our earthly minuscule level in the Hollis Street Junior Common Room, It's the red triangle on the bottle of Bass, and that's what Bloom has been staring at. Okay, that's 545. Let's move on. And this narrator now is telling us that actually Bloom wasn't up there with the theosophists and the heavens. He was actually thinking about some fairly mundane things, as has been narrated for us. About when he was a boy, when he was doing his first sales, when he lost his virginity. And I think there, in the words here, recollecting 2 or 3 private transactions of his own. Would we consider losing one's virginity as a private transaction? Or perhaps if you were paying a young prostitute a shilling for it, perhaps it's also then a translation. But eventually both their eyes met. I think this is Bloom and Lenihan. Bloom suddenly realizes that Lenihan wants a drink, and Bloom then sort of wakes up and passes him a bottle, and Bloom takes some beer of his own, but just evacuates it again into a neighbour's glass, or somewhere that he doesn't need to drink it. We then, on 546, move into the style of Macaulay, the essayist, and it's about Warren, in the style of Warren Hastings, one of the earliest governors of India, I think. And we then, it's the scene is then descripted. I think it's fairly straightforward. Yeah, we get some choreography of those around the table, which is quite interesting. It sort of places Stephen in, if we might think of this as the Last Supper, and if so, as we go around the table, we've got Stephen as at the head of it in the Jesus position, which we may find quite interesting. Bloom is described as that vigilant wanderer, soiled by the dust of travel and combat and stained by the mire of an indelible dishonour. What do we think that is? It's easy to assume that that would be what happened on the beach with Gertie McDowell. Maybe it's causing the death of his own son, which is the guilt, which I think is what he sort of is somehow in his head, psychologically, he blames himself. But our narrator tells us that despite that indelible dishonour, this is a good man. His heart is steadfast and constant, so no degradation could efface the image of that loveliness. So the narrator seems to be in Bloom's camp at this point. He hasn't always been so. Continuing with Macaulay, we then get this debate that goes on about the determination of the sex and what causes infant mortality. And remember that Bloom obviously have suffered such a terrible thing. And there are all sorts of theories are given for that over 548 and 549, with some sort of, the debate is somehow brought to a head saying, well, it's necessary for the survival of the fittest. I'm skipping over things quite quickly at this point. Hopefully I'm not missing anything too vital. I'm now on 550. So it's just a general debate about infant mortality. And at the bottom of 550, we come into the style of Dickens with the paragraph. Meanwhile, the skill and patience of the physician had brought about a happy accouchement. And if it's Dickens, then we're coming pretty up to date, really, aren't we? We're towards the end of the 19th century. So, and seeing as we're 1904 when the book is set, then pretty close. And I think in our Dickensian style, it's reasonably straightforward. The narrator is really in the Purefoy camp, both Dodie and Wilhelmina, how they have done their bit in bringing another baby into the world, despite the fact they've already got an awful lot. We don't know if he can afford an awful lot. He seems to be a second accountant at the Ulster Bank College Green branch. From the names of their children, I'm guessing that, we know he's a Methodist. He takes the Eucharist, from which I think we can probably surmise that maybe Minor Purefoy is Catholic. I'm not sufficiently well up as to whether the Eucharist is also a Protestant ceremony, but I somehow, my hunch is that it's more Catholic. So if he's done that, he's probably done it for his wife, but that all their names look to me fairly Protestant, named after a hero of the South African War. And then this last one named Mortimer Edward, after the influential third cousin in the Treasury Remembrances Office at Dublin Castle. Working at Dublin Castle doesn't automatically make you a Protestant. I don't think Martin Cunningham is, and he works there. But I have a feeling that, we know that Dodie is a Methodist. So over the page, yes, more plaudits given to Dodie by our Dickensian narrator. And then we get to the paragraph that on 552 that begins, "There are sins. Let us call them evil memories." I think we have to, this is neither a sin nor really an evil memory, but a memory that Bloom has somehow forgotten about but appears for reasons he's not quite sure. And this came to him earlier in the day when he saw John Henry Menton. This scene appeared in Bloom's head, the game of bowls in Roundtown at Valentine, what's his surname? The Lord Mayor, his brother. And Matt Dillon, that's the name I'm thinking, the brother of Val Dillon, Valentine Dillon, the Lord Mayor. And it's an important scene. It's the scene that Bloom recalled in Hades, where he sees John Henry Menton. And here it comes back to him. The shaven space of lawn, one soft May evening, the well-remembered grove of lilacs at Roundtown, and then the game of bowls, where they run, i.e. the bowls themselves, forward over a sword or collide at stop, one by its fellow after a brief alert shock. And it was a significant moment because do I go out on a limb and I say this was the moment that Bloom and Molly first meet? Molly is there watching the game of bowls. Henry Menton assumes he's going to win. Bloom, with beginner's luck, beats him. And what's worse for Menton than losing the game of bowls to a complete beginner, which really sticks in his craw, but even worse, the girls there that are watching the game laugh. And one in particular, Molly Tweedy, that as she was then, that Menton was really hoping to impress. And she laughs and actually has a bit of an eye for Bloom, the beginner that's just embarrassed him. You may recall that scene back in Hades. And it's a stated aim of Joyce that this chapter will look back on previous events of the day, and there it does. And for Bloom, this scene comes into his head, and it's significant because, as well as the game of bowls, he recalls there was a young boy, 4 or 5 years old, stood on this urn, surrounded by these girls, making a protective ring around him. The little boy, worried he might fall, looking nervously towards his mother, but somehow reckless disregard for danger. And Bloom thinks, a little like this man that has before me. And he recalled when the thunder struck, Stephen was had this false bravado. He was chilled to the bone, but tried to pretend he didn't care about it. And Bloom recognises and associates the 22-year-old man before him now with the 4 or 5-year-old boy that he saw on that day. So a portentous thing. And as we move, so I think that's been described in the style of Walter Pater, the essayist. We then move further on, and we bringing us pretty up to date in the style of Ruskin. Stephen is described a lad of 4 or 5 in Linsey Wolsey, perhaps making us associating it, maybe in Bloom's mind, with Rudy, for whom Molly knitted the lamb's wool jacket that he could be buried in because it was cold in January. And then Bloom confirms what I've just said. He frowns a little, just as this young man does now, with a perhaps too conscious enjoyment of danger, and looks to his mother. And she gives him a look of reproach. Alles vergänglich, all will pass. And a final paragraph of this section of the chapter. Mark this further and remember, the end comes suddenly. And I think here we are at the nub of it. Suddenly, continuing with Ruskin, I think, but we're at the birth of Jesus. And if this chapter is about the birth of Stephen in an artistic sense, then we're at it. We're back in Judea, in Bethlehem, thousands of years before, about a crib. There is the baby, and as just before the birth, the clouds, storm clouds, heavy with preponderant excess of moisture, swollen masses turgidly distended, encompass the earth and the sky. This astral aspect to it all. And at the moment of the birth, a great lightning strikes, a great thunderstorm. And Joyce is at pains to tell us that as with the birth of that Messiah, so as now we have, and we have to look back to earlier in the chapter when the thunder struck, so and not otherwise was the transformation violent and instantaneous upon the utterance of the word. So that the thunder we had earlier was equally portentous in a terribly blasphemous way of our new Saviour who is about to be born upon the utterance of the word, capital W, John 1:5. What is it? The word was made flesh. The word was God. Whatever. I'm insufficiently well up on it, but it was words to that effect. And what is the word now? What is the word that was born? And over the page, that word is Berks. Stephen exclaims the name of a pub down the road because the beer has run out And it is now about coming up to 10 to 11. Pubs close at 11 o'clock. What are they going to do? The beer has run out around the table. Burke's, they need to head to Burke's down the road. And off they rush. We come pretty much up to date in the style of Carlyle. They all grab various pieces of clothing and headgear. I do find it quite amusing that Zermatt alpenstocks are among the gear that they collect, which I'm assuming relates to Bannon, who has come not from the Swiss Alps, but sort of from the countryside in Mullingar. Nurse Callan is taken aback by this swift evacuation, as is Dylan. He gives them some sharp language, but then he goes as well. Bloom hangs back and confides with Nurse Callan, "Madam, when comes the stalk for thee?" And then they're out. And being out of the hospital is an important thing, because Stephen, in that sense, has been born. Joyce stated his aim, that Stephen was the embryo, the hospital was the womb. So they are now out of the womb, whatever one makes of that. And outside, the air is impregnated with rain-dew moisture, the stifling humidity from before the thunder and the rain breathed down the street. Now it's pure air, and then we get our narrator gets back to Purefoy. "Breathe it deep into thee, by heaven, Theodore Purefoy, thou hast done a doughty deed and no botch," as though Purefoy has somehow been instrumental in Stephen being born, never mind his own baby. And on it goes. The whole Joyce makes the point, and through the narrator, the Malthusiasts go hang. What we're about here is regeneration, rebirth, repopulation in an artistic sense, but conveyed here through Theodore as the great Allfather, if you like. And such glowing laurels that he bestowed upon him goes through 555. Pretty funny and reasonably self-explanatory. There is a bit in German in there. I don't have the translation to hand, I'm afraid, but the milk, we drank the milk of something. Maybe it was sweet, and that seems to be the gist of it. Rejoice in nature, red in truth and claw, but that is us, and we're reproducing the milk of human kin. And of those stars overhead. This is what makes the world go round. Reproduction. And a final at the bottom of page 555, there is a toast given to the goddess of sex and reproduction. That is with whom we rejoice. And that takes us to the bottom of 555 and to a different part of this video, because we now move into 5 pages of at first sight nonsense. It's almost as though Joyce has taken us beyond language. We've got we're on the boys are on the way to the pub. They're rushing to this pub. They're already drunk. That's what I think we have to bear that in mind. They're already drunk. So it's as though language is drunk. It's fairly incomprehensible. And once we're in the pub, there's lots of different conversations going on at the same time, lots of stuff happening at the same time. How do you make sense of any of it? Well, we're going to try, because my task now is pretty much to translate 555 to the end of the chapter at 561. So what I'm going to do now is take you through pages 555 to 561 and sort of translating what at first sight might be an impossible and impenetrable mess. And I'm not sure I could have made it on my own. So I'm indebted to John Noel Turner, who wrote an essay in 1997 for the James Joyce Quarterly. And that has helped me through this. And although I've given my own thoughts in certain places and embellished that's really where I've got a lot of this from. So, all off for a buster, arm strong, arm in arm, hollering down the street, bona fides, where you sleep last night, Timothy of the battered naggin. So bona fides is I think they're imagining, if you're going to turn up at a pub 10 minutes before closing time, you probably wouldn't be let in. But there was a dispensation for those that lived out of town. And bona fides seems to be the word for the barman. Perhaps he was saying, what's your bona fides? If you could justify you were an out of town traveller, then you could turn up. That's why you're late. That's why you're turning up just before closing time. You'd be let in. They're almost rehearsing. Where you sleep last night? Timothy, or the battered naggin, as though some sort of country pub. Right. Any brollies or gumboots in the family is asked. Maybe they're worried about rain. Has anyone got an umbrella? Where the Henry Neville's sawbones and old clothes. Where the devil is Dixon, sawbones, and old clo Stephen, dresses in old clothes. Sorry, no one of me knows. But there's Dixon. Yes, there he is. Right, forward the ribbon counter. Where's Punch? All serene. Punch Costello says, I'm fine. So, Jay, look at the drunken minister coming out of the maternity hospital. I think these are kids identified as the Denzil Lane boys. Stephen is all in a long black coat and he's blind drunk. He looks like a minister. They're surprised. Someone, is it Stephen? Is it Mulligan? Blesses them. Benedictus vos omnipotens duos pater filius. Denzil Lake boys. Hell blast ye. Someone gets rid of these kids around the place. We're not sure who it is, but we get a clue. Righto, Isaacs, shove them out the bleeding limelight. So it might have been Bloom. Someone is referring, not terribly nicely, to Bloom as Isaacs because they assume he's a Jew. And then to compound it, and this might be Lenehan because of the accent, use join us, dear sir, no intrusion in life, lo, heap good man, Ollie say me this bunch, and then en avant mes enfants, go forward my children. So it probably is Lenehan, but all a bit nasty to Bloom. Yeah, you can join us. We don't mind that you're a Jew. We're all the same in this bunch. Come along. So fire away number one on the gun. There seems to be a sort of military operation. They've got to get to Burke's very, very quickly. They've only got 10 minutes before closing time. It's a block away at the corner of the street. So they're going to go. They're advancing 5 parasangs like in the old Greek army. Slatter is mounted foot from Percy French's song. Where's that bleeding author? Where's the author? Where's Stephen? Parson Steve, oh, there he is. Give us the apostate's creed. A bit like Stephen recited a blasphemous poem in the style of the apostate's creed. Was it back in Scylla? He's asked to repeat that. Doesn't do so. He's told Mulligan must ask him. No, Mulligan. Shove ahead. Keep watch on the clock. Chucking out time. Mully, what's on you? Why? So someone's saying, Mulligan, why are you going so slow? Ma mère m'a marié, it's because I'm married to this husband, perhaps Stephen, dragging his feet. British Beatitudes. Ramp de lamb, diggity boom boom. Mulligan continues that French song, and then talks about to be printed and brown at the Dundrum Press by two designing females. This might be Yeats's sisters. Covers of Piston Green, Last Wedding Shades. Most beautiful book come out of Ireland in my time, repeating that Yeats, his parody of Yeats from before. But the general gist of this is they've got to get a spurt on. They've got to go tension, walk military fashion very quickly to get to the nearest canteen, i.e. the pub, and there annex the liquor stores, get some drinking. March, tramp, the boys are attitudes. Someone says it's Beatitudes, the British Beatitudes. Beer, beef, business, Bibles, bulldogs, battleships, buggery and bishops. Mixed in with some Irish patriotic songs, where they're on the scaffold high. Beer, beef, trample the Bibles, weighing for Ireland here. Trample the tramplers, thunderation, keep the darn military step. And yes, they then get to the pub. Everyone tries to get in all at once, trip on each other's toes, step on each other's toes. All you hurt, I'm most amazingly sorry. That's bottom of page 556. Once they're in, who's buying the rounds? So far, they've enjoyed free beer in the junior common room. Not sure who supplied that. The hospital, I guess. Who's standing this here do? None of them seem to have any money. But then Stephen says, yours? Yeah, Stephen steps up to the plate and he buys the round. And Mulligan says, me to the father for the Ubermensch, i.e. beer. So 5 number ones, number 1 bass, you sir, addressing Bloom. Bloom takes a ginger cordial because it stimulates the caloric. Winding of his ticker. Was it someone in Davy Burns says whenever Bloom's at the bar, he doesn't buy, but he winds his watch. Was it Paddy Leonard? Maybe. Stop, short, never to go again. When the old, so the winding of his clock, because his clock has stopped. Stephen orders an absinthe for himself. Caramba, someone says, oh my God, you might want to have an eggnog or a prairie oyster, line your stomach a bit. Enemy, that's Bloom asking for the time because his watch has stopped. Enemy, the euphemism for time, the enemy of time. Avunculus got me timepiece. Well, it's 10-2, i.e. 10 to 11. I'm awfully obliged. Oh, don't mention it. Got a pectoral trauma, eh, Dick? Someone else somewhere is asking Dixon about that he treated Bloom for some bee sting. And then buckled he is. Yes, Bloom is married. Know his Donna, know his wife. Yep, I do. Full of Adora. She's quite a big woman, fills the door. Seen her in her dishy billy, peels off her credit. So whoever this is talking has seen her undressed. Pull down the blind, love. There's an implication that maybe Molly gets undressed in front of the window where people can see. 2 Ardilans are ordered, 2 Guinnesses. Yeah, same here. Look slippery. Get on with it. If you fall, don't wait to get up, i.e. Be as quick as you possibly can with the Guinnesses because we've only got a few minutes. And now we're back on to Molly. Got a prime pair of mince pies, i.e. eyes, and her take me to rests, i.e. her breasts, and her anchor of rum, i.e. a bum, must be seen to be believed. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, glue pot. That's fairly rude, like a woman describing a woman as sort of a sticky sort of thing. Let's not go there. Right. Bloom now seems to be asking Dixon about whether it's true that spuds, that potatoes help you against rheumatism. Oh, it's all someone else, or poppycock. And someone else says in a Yiddish Jewish accent, I think you're a great fool. And then addresses the Dixon. Well, Doc, back from Lapland, i.e. the maternity hospital. So If they're asking that, we assume this is not someone that was in the maternity hospital with them. And then they ask, how's the squaws and papooses? How in the maternity hospital are the mothers and children getting on? Stand and deliver, someone says. Password. That's the second time this has been mentioned. That was the Citizen said that when Hines and the nameless one walked into the pub. Password. There's hair, owls, the white death, and ruddy birth. Is that describing the birth process? Anyway, hi, spit in your eye, boss. Spit in your eye, boss. I think this is Mulligan, in your own eye, boss, sorry. As Stephen maybe spat as he's engaged in conversation. But this next bit is definitely Mulligan. Mama's wire. Back in Telemachus, Mulligan called Stephen a mama, an actor. And he's referring to the telegram he sent. Cribbed out of Meredith. Well, we know that. The Meredith play, The Sentimentalist that they've seen. The Sentimentalist is someone that doesn't appreciate the debt that he enjoys, the effect of the debt that he incurs without paying the debt. Words to that effect. And then Mulligan continues his criticism of Stephen, Jessified, orchidized, polysemical Jesuit. Auntie Mines, writing par kinch, baddie bad, Stephen, lead astray, goody good Malachi. You'll recall back in Telemachus, he said the aunt thinks you killed your mother. She's going to write a letter to your father that I shouldn't be associating with you. And didn't Simon Dedalus say he was going to do the exact opposite, actually? Write to Stephen's aunt, if she is to Mulligan's aunt, if she is in fact his aunt. Next paragraph. The drinks arrive. They're given out generally. The Scottish guy gets his drink. Long may your lamb reek and your kettle pot boil. My tipple, merci, that must be Lenihan, here's to us, how's that, like before. Don't stain me brand new Sydenhams, someone's worried their new trousers are going to the beer's going to spill on them. Give us a shake of pepper, you there, catch a halt. Is it more drinks given out, or is someone taking a caraway seed, which are set in pubs to take away the alcohol breath? Caraway seed, Lennon says caraway seed to carry away, tries to do a pun, but no one gets it. Shrieks of silence, he says sardonically. Every cove to his gentry malt, i.e. everyone that's ordered their drink has got their drink. They give a toast to Dirty Venus, and then we assume Banham is telling his story about Millie, bold bad girl from the town of Mullingar. Tell her I was axing at her, holding Sarah by the wain and then Lynch speaks on the road to Malahide, telling maybe Banham the story of how he and Kitty get caught by Father Conmee. She who seduced me had left, perhaps it's not Lynch, but someone else now, saying, well, I had left me, but the name, I don't get much sex, or my sex is not very good when I get it. Well, what do you want for 9p? You only see prostitutes. Smutty mole for a mattress jig. Smutty moll, a term for a prostitute, but Molly, they obviously don't realise what they're saying, but they're to us, the reader. There we are. So, next paragraph. Waiting, governor. Yes, I am. I.e., the barman has not yet been paid. All the drinks have been ordered, they've been handed around. But where's the money? Stunned, like seeing as how no shiners is a coming. No money is arriving. And have you got the jink ad lib? Seed near £3 on an a spell. I said, wah, hisn't. So someone is saying, I saw he's all right, he's good for it. I saw he's got £3 on him. Do you remember Stephen gets all his money in the hospital to show off? And someone says to Stephen, look, we come in on your invite. See, you offered to buy the drinks. Now you got to pay the money. Out with the youth. A 2 bar and a wing. Is that 2 shillings and something? Is that? Did you learn that in Paris? You learn that go off their Frenchy bilks that you get all the drinks. You don't pay for them. It won't wash here, mate. And then Stephen, in a sort of Chinese way, Lil Chow Veli Sully, and Gall's Truth, Charlie, we're not drunk. And Lennon, so Stephen has now paid. Lennon thanks him for the drink. Au reservoir, monsieur, thanks you. Next paragraph. We're into a different conversation. Lennon is pointing out to someone, oh, look at that over there in the speakeasy. I see him, Bantam Lions. He's been 2 days teetotal, but now look at him, he's knocking back claret wine. Whether that means literally wine or he's just drinking lots of beer, I'm not sure. Look, Garn, have a glint, have a look at him. And he's been to the barber. He's shaved off his moustache and he's with some railway bloke. Railway bloke. Oh, I bet he'd like my joke. Rose of Castile. And he's got some flowers. So he's going to, looks like he's got them for his wife. Oh my God, he's about to sing. The Colleen Baum, my Colleen Baum. Oh, Jesus, shut him up, blah, blah, blah. And then we get the reason why Lennon is feeling slightly awkward, because he gave him the tip for throwaway. Bantam Lions had a tip for throwaway, and Lennon talked him out of it. He would be quids in, and maybe this is now why Bantam Lions is not only drowning his sorrows, but he's also got some flowers for his wife, because maybe he's in trouble at home. Then we move to the last 10 lines or so of 558, and it all seems very confusing, but partially due to a misprint. Had the winner today till I tipped him a dead cert. Well, that we understand. The ruffin cly the nab of Stephen. The devil take the head of Stephen. Full stop. Hand as give me the JD Copperline. What the hell is it? And the misprint is there shouldn't be a full stop. The assumption is in the Penguin and in several other editions that he's talking about Stephen, but he's not this Stephen. He's talking about someone called Stephen Hand. And Gabler, in the Gabler, bless it, they don't repeat that mistake. So it's the devil take the head of Stephen Hand. He gave me the tip. And then there's some story about he intercepted a telegram, which he shouldn't have done. A telegram came from the Bass stables, saying it was a telegram to someone, I'm not sure who, saying Scepter is looking really good. Put your money on Scepter. It gets intercepted by this bloke, Stephen Hand, who Grahamizes it by steaming it open and then and gives it back to the telegram boy, but passes on the tip to Lenihan. So he's blaming this fella for saying Scepter's a dead cert, which turned out to be wrong because Throwaway did him at the end. That brings us to 559. Who is leaving? Decamping. Oh, must you go? So Bantam Lyons is going. He's got his bunch of flowers. He's got to make good for his wife. He's feeling pretty churlish because he's done his money on Scepter. But Lenihan is feeling very awkward. He doesn't want to be spotted by Bantam Lyons. Hide my blushes, someone. All in if he spots me. Au revoir, mon vieux. Don't forget the flowers for her. And the railway guy calls out to Bantam Lyons, come on, confide. Who gave you the tip? And Bantam Lyons, as he's going, says, no fake, it was Bloom, it was old man Leo. So help me, honest Injun. There's a great big holy friar, a big liar maybe, and then the railway guy puts on his Jewish voice. Why for you know me tell? I guess he's implying in a fairly nasty anti-Semitic way that, yeah, Bloom had this secret information he didn't tell anyone. There you go. On to the next paragraph. You move emotions, Steve boy. Steve, you getting in another round of drinks? Someone's saying. Will immensely splendiferous stand a pint, blah, blah, blah. Someone is saying, I got no money. You got some money. Can you get me another drink? Landlord, if you could wine, Staboo, Hootsman, cut and come again. Yes, Stephen agrees. Right. Yes, here's another drink. Right, Boniface, absinthe all round. And then in Latin, he gives a prayer for the green poison, for absinthe, and may the devil take our backsides. The barman says, closing time. Right, Rome booze for the Bloomtoff. Decent wine for Bloom, says Stephen, at which point Bannon hears him say, Bloom? Oh my God, what do you mean Bloom? Oh, and then so Bannon realizes that Bloom is there, that this is Photo Girl's dad. And someone else says, play low, partner, play it cool. He doesn't know who you are, just keep quiet. But Bannon thinks, I better go. And he and Buck Mulligan sneak off. Where's the buck? They skunked out, leg bail. Stephen thinks, checkmate, king to tower. I know where Mulligan's gone. He's got my key, and he's gone to let himself in the tower. And kind Christian, will you help young man whose friend took bungalow key? So Stephen's got nowhere to live, nowhere to go that night, and he's had nothing to eat. Someone asks, is there any food in the bar for him? No, there's nothing. But so they just have their drinks, and they give a toast over the page on 560 for the next round of drinks that Stephen has just bought. So here we are, top of page 560, so really closing in on the end, you'll be relieved to know. And someone spots the bloke in the Macintosh. So we know this is one of the great mysteries of the book. Who is he? In Hades, Bloom was unclear who he was. Dusty Rhodes is the suggestion, a cartoon tramp, because he looks a little worse for wear. Look at his clothes. What's he got? Jubilee mutton, i.e. not much. He needs some Bovril. Do you see the bare socks? Seedy cousin, the Richmond. Richmond was a hospital for the mentally infirm. Thought he had a deposit of lead in his penis. Strange thing to say, but we might comment on that way off in Circe in our next chapter. Temporary insanity, was once prosperous citizen. Man all tattered and torn that married a maiden all forlorn, slung her hook, she did, i.e. she died. In Cyclops, love loves to love love. The man in the Macintosh loves a lady who is dead. I think that was the line. So this is sort of underlying that. We're not going to find out here who he is, but it's adding to our store of information so that we can conject and make a bit more of a educated guess, but not at this point. Lennon says, see him today at the Runeful, the funeral. Lords of mercy, poor pickaninnies, now thinking about the funeral, those poor Dignam children. And then in a Negro sort of language, is a West Indian type language, poor Paddy Dignam, sad he's gone, blah, blah, blah. And then the conversation seems to move into a different conversation about the Gordon Bennett car race and about cars that have live axle drives or something. And then another conversation about the Russo-Japanese War and how the Japs have got it because of the angle of their weapons. And the barman is throwing them out and they're saying their goodbyes. Get ye gone, forward woozy wobblers, night, night. May Allah, the excellent one, your soul this night ever tremendously conserve. T.S. Eliot, I think, read this chapter at around the time that he was preparing The Wasteland, and I think this pub exit may have influenced him, maybe. Sounds familiar. Right, we're not the foo, we're not the drunk, we're not drunk. The Leith police dismissed the Leith. This is a tongue twister whereby you can, the sort of rehearsing, maybe this is Crothers, the Scottish guy. If you can say the Leith police dismissed, it's a tongue twister. If you can say that, it's proving you're not drunk. Someone throws up, and then someone else notices there's a fire brigade, there's a fire. It looks like up on Mount Street over there. Come on, let's go and have a look. And off they run. But not all of them, because Stephen says, hang on, Lynch, why don't you come with me? Denzil Lane this way. Let's go to the bawdy house, the prostitute, the brothel. And we too, she said, will seek the kips where Shady Mary is. Stephen parodying Dante Gabriel Rossetti from his poem The Blessed Damozel. And then Lynch, rather disappointingly to the reader, having been extolling the virtues of his girlfriend Kitty, says, yeah, sure, of course I'll come along with you. But he said, but who's that fella that's following a few yards back in the black suit? And it's Bloom. Stephen says he sinned against the light. Stephen, we know that was a very anti-Semitic thing that Deasy said way back in chapter 2. We don't think Stephen's anti-Semitic. He stood up against Deasy when he said it. But it shows how these phrases stick into his head, and now he's repeating it and putting Stephen really in the role of God. He's come to look over me on Judgment Day. He will because we've had the wind, now we've had the rain, now there's fire. Is Judgment Day approaching? And who is this? Is this Elijah that's going to pronounce judgment And then, so they walk on, and then Lynch sees the poster on the wall of Alexander Dowie. Elijah is coming. Elijah. Bloom is set up in this Elijah role. And there is this poster about Elijah, washed in the blood of the Lamb. And then we get a paraphrase of, well, in the narratives, the poster starts talking, if you like, through the book. Closely, Joyce has taken this fairly closely from a genuine speech by Alexander J. Dowie, essentially saying, you sinners, don't go to the brothel, come to me, I'll see you all right. By listening to me, and no doubt paying me money, is the way you're going to get to heaven. I've saved half the planet so far, from Frisco Beach to Vladivostok. And put your faith in me, and blah blah blah. You better pay attention before it's too late. And then that final phrase, just you try it on. And there we are. I hope that's the end of the chapter, and hope that helps you make sense of those last few pages, which is sort of beyond language. We've come the full cycle from earliest Anglo-Saxon to modern English, and then through into slang and all bits of pidgin language and bits and bobs, snatched conversations heard. That's sort of the chaotic life of modern day English, is where Joyce is saying where we're at. And in the context of our story, however, we have Stephen and Lynch going to the brothel, and Bloom, the concerned father, not his actual father, but is more and more taking on that role, is worried for Stephen, and he's hot on his heels. And that is where we will leave this wonderful, wonderful chapter, Oxen of the Sun. It's really advanced our story. And see you next time in Nighttown. That's all from me. I hope my all the alcohol I've consumed today, perhaps fittingly for this episode, did not take the edge off my interpretation. Maybe it helped it. So there you go. See you next time. Bye bye.